What shall we say the kingdom of God is like? Or what parable shall we use to describe it? It's like a mustard seed, the smallest seed you could plant in the ground. Yet when planted it grows and becomes the largest of all garden plants, with such big branches that the birds of the air can perch in its shade. So says St. Mark. Small is beautiful. That's what we've been told anyway. And in this story from St. Mark's Gospel, Jesus refers to the mustard seed, and you can almost hear him saying, small is beautiful, can't you? The tiniest of seeds growing into such a large plant. Once it is sown, it grows into the biggest shrub of them all, he says. We could have said something similar about David, the shepherd boy who slew Goliath. Just because something or someone is small does not mean that they are either unimportant or without influence. In fact, usually it's quite the contrary. Small may not always be beautiful, but it is frequently either impressive or effective. This is often the case with people who are small of stature. It could be said to be true not only of David, but also, for example, Mother Teresa or Paul himself, whose very name in Greek means small. So St. Paul may have been small, but just look at how effective his preaching was, and his writing was immense. It largely accounts in the beginning for the spread of the gospel throughout the whole Roman Empire. So in this gospel reading, Jesus first tells us how the kingdom of God can grow through the activity of providence, like seeds scattered on the land. And although people may sow and scatter the seed, it is not they who enable the seed to grow in the earth, but God. Jesus then went on to compare the kingdom of heaven to this mustard seed, which, though he calls it the smallest of all the seeds on the earth, grows into the largest shrub that exists. In other words, we cannot judge by the size of anything at first, least of all the kingdom, or tell how it will ultimately turn out at the final harvest. And just as the physical size of a person does not bear relation to that person's quality or influence, so the kingdom of God is not dependent on such things. Jesus says the kingdom of God is like this small mustard seed, which once it has grown to maturity will have the birds of the air coming to find shelter in its shade, and so the nations of the earth will be gathered together into the kingdom. St. Mark also tells us that whereas Jesus spoke to the crowds who came to hear him only in parables, he was careful to explain their meaning to his disciples when they were alone. Teaching and explanation have always been vital if we are to comprehend the full meaning of the parables. So how would Jesus have explained that parable to them? How would he explain it to us? What would it mean? I think he would say to us, there are times when we might feel discouraged by the slow growth or even the apparent decline of the kingdom of God in this world. In the West, for example, whole areas have become completely secular in outlook. If we simply despair about this, then we will have forgotten that the growth of God's kingdom does not depend upon us alone. It is God who is the sower, and it is God's providence, not our efforts alone, that enables his kingdom to grow. On our own, it's easy for us to feel dispirited, disillusioned, or simply confused. But the Gospels reveal that the disciples in Jesus' day often felt the same. They needed the teaching of Jesus to help them to understand the kingdom. It is one of the tasks of the Christian church today to help present the parables to us as Jesus once explained them to his disciples. And it is also the task of the Christians to not feel discouraged by their own smallness. No matter how few we are in number, we are planted by God and we will be used by him. The physical size or seeming smallness of our congregations should not discourage us, but it should inspire us as we strive to fulfill God's purpose in placing us right here where he wants us. So even if the kingdom may have the appearance of being small and insignificant, Jesus reminds us that like the mustard seed, we will eventually become large and will contain people from all the nations of the world. We are called to be a people of hope and to trust in the providence of God, and that is just as true even if we as a church may have the appearance of being small and insignificant, because with God's help we will be a force for good in this world.